Hi there everybody, it's Martin Twycross here again with another live question and answer session, another live question and answer class. So I hope you're all well. The purpose of the question and answer class is for me to come on once a month and for you guys to ask me any questions you have about mediumship, development, any related topic, and I'm here to answer your questions. I'm here to talk about whatever you'd like me to talk about, I suppose within reason, I should say that. There's probably a few topics that I couldn't quite cover off because I don't have the knowledge, but it's lovely to see you here, Mona. If anybody else wants to type in the chat, you're more than welcome. To type in the chat, of course, you do have to be logged into YouTube or Google because it does require you to be logged in to be able to type in the chat. If anybody has any questions, you can start loading them in the chat as well. You can start putting them in the chat if you wish. Let me just pop out the chat so I can see it better. So since the last live stream, there's been a number of updates on the channel. I did a video on lost souls and earthbound spirits, which is probably the question I get most asked in the live class anyway. So I thought I may as well put a comprehensive video together on it for you, which I did. So that one I've released. Also released another one on can a medium contact a famous person or a celebrity in spirit? Because, you know, again, that's a fascinating one. The simple answer, I believe, is no, unless the sitter or recipient knew them. That's the simple answer. But do check it out if you've not seen it. And the other video I put out as well is how many spirit contacts should there be in a sitting? And the simple answer is no hard and fast rules, whole number of factors to be taken into account. If you're interested in that, do check out that video as well. Hi there, Melba. Hi there, Magdalena and Natalie and Clayton Silver and Michael. Lovely to see you all. So also since the last class as well, the last live class, I have launched the Better Private Readings course and we've had our first class with that. If you're interested in doing that, there is still time to sign up. I'll bring it up on screen. Oh, wrong one, this one. So that's the Better Private Readings course. It's 4 classes, £60. I try and keep my classes as reasonable as possible. And we've started it, but all classes are recorded. So if you want to catch up, you can get the replay of the first class and you'll have access to the remaining classes. So highly recommend that course if you're interested in doing readings. Feedback so far has been very good. So also, hello to Anastasia. So it's great that you can all join me. That's wonderful. So the format's the same. You get to ask a question in the chat box, pop your question in there. And what I'll do is I'll work through them one by one. We'll go through the questions one by one. If you do want to get your question answered earlier, you can by using Super Chat. If there's a few in the queue, if you do a Super Chat, which is where that little $ on the bottom in the chat box, you can click on that. That enables you to ask me a question and I will get straight to it for you. But of course, it does make a donation to be in the channel as well. You can also donate as well via PayPal. There's a link pinned in the top of the chat. My PayPal link is linked there. So if you want to make a donation via PayPal, that's always appreciated as well. I don't charge for these classes. I do them because the information is so much needed. But if anyone does want to contribute, all contributions are gratefully received. If you want to buy me a coffee, it's gratefully received. So I can see there's a couple of questions in the chat box building up. Hi to Andrea and to Jacqueline. So let me have a look at the questions. What have we got to answer first? Michael question, what are the ways of blending with spirit during readings other than sitting in the power? Now during readings, there is only one way of blending with spirit and it's not sitting in the power. The only way you can blend with spirit during a sitting is to connect to them. And it's that connection to spirit. When you're doing a sitting, you are not sitting in the power. When you're doing a sitting, it's not the same energy. Sitting in the power is mind training for mediumship. But sitting in the power is a relatively passive process. Connecting to spirit is an active, energized process. We're blending our mind to move to the spirit world and we're holding the connection with spirit. But it's a very excited, energized state. It needs, like, if you like, we talk about power being fuel for mediumship. But when you're connecting to the spirit world, we need the ignition. And the ignition is that excitement, that energy that gets us there. So if you try and do sit-ins or you try and do platform work from the same state of mind as sitting in the power, generally it won't work very well. It's too passive. So there are no ways and techniques of blending with spirit other than to move your awareness, to move your mind to the spirit world and invite spirit to work with you. It's as simple as that. So there are no other complex scenarios. There's nothing else you need to worry about. It really is as simple as that. It really is just as simple as moving your mind. I say as simple as that, but of course it takes effort, it takes practice, tools for connecting. It's not an easy thing to do. I do have a class on connecting to spirit. One of my videos, I have a whole bunch of videos you'll see there in class 3 is connecting with spirit. They cost £12 each and about 2 hours long each, but that one, it's also included in module 1 as well of the study program, if that's of interest to you. So yeah, so that class would be valuable to give you tools, ideas, techniques to help. Also, the Fundamentals of Mediumship course includes that as well. So I hope that answers your question, Michael. And if it's not quite answered your question, feel free to ask a supplemental question to cover it off. Okay, Madeleine, welcome. And Keith. Okay, next question. Would you allow a child under 18 to sit in on their parents' reading? That one again is down to you. I would never actively attempt to work with somebody, a child. It depends upon the age of the child. If they were below 16, I would say no. If they were above 16, between 16 to 18. In some jurisdictions, 16 is an age of consent. In other jurisdictions, 16 gives people certain rights. I'd say from the age of 16 onwards, they're probably capable of understanding what's happening. Below the age of 16, I wouldn't want it. I wouldn't want them there, to be truthful. But that's just me. That's just the ethics I work to. But it's never happened before that somebody has been there. Now, sometimes in a church, children will come in with their parents. So children will sit in a church during a church service. If I'm working with the parent, I never work with the children. I've seen some mediums go to the children and start working with them, and I think it's a very, very, very bad practice not to be done. We've got to understand that sometimes the children cannot processing what is taking place. If it's a private reading, generally I like it to be private. I sometimes allow maybe mum and daughter to come along, but the problem is when there's more than one person, the energies get affected, and what happens in the reading can go to one or other person. So what ends up happening is you end up working, trying to appease them both. And if all of the reading goes to one person and not the other, and they're both paying, you end up feeling like you have to work more to give the other person value for money. And generally, if more than one person wants to come in, I will say I charge on a pro rata basis. This is my cost for a reading lasting 30 minutes. So however long we go over that will be prorated. And I would leave a bit of extra time because generally you'll go over, in my experience. So hopefully that helps answer the question. But generally, the simple answer, the cleanest answer to that, if someone asks me, can I bring my child who's below the age of 18? The answer is no. If I knew them, if I'd met them and I felt, you know what, they're quite spiritual and I think they'd understand and they're 16 or 17, then maybe I may change that rule. But generally it'd be a no. But that's just me. We've all got to determine our own rules. But for anybody under the age, never ever give a sitting to a child. That's my view. Okay, next question. Let's see. Keith, apart from sitting in the power, learning theory and spiritualizing their self, are there any exercises you can do by yourself to improve attunement or mediumship skills? So obviously there's more than just sitting in the power in terms of attuning to spirit. We can, there are a multitude of meditations out there. There's not just sitting in the power. In my meditation and sitting for spirit course, I gave 4 different meditations. The first one is this classic sitting in the power. The second one is kind of a variation on sitting in the power where we don't talk about power, but effectively it's training for mediumship, just like sitting in the power is, but with, if you want, different terminology. I call that one sitting for unfoldment. And at some stage I will get round to releasing it as an MP3 as well. Definitely, it's on my list. Then we can learn to blend with our guides. We can learn, there are a multitude of different types of meditations you can do for spiritual development, to develop self, to develop spiritual qualities, to develop love, compassion, understanding. You can meditate on those qualities. You can open to the inspiration of your soul. You can open to the inspiration of spirit. You can work inspirationally, whether we use inspirational writing or whether we work with inspirational speaking. We can speak into, say you have like a little dictaphone. I've just got one to hand here. You could go into an like inspirational state of attunement and start talking and blending with spirit that way. There's a multitude of ways. There are more ways of blending with spirit than there are mediums to think of them, basically. The imagination is the limit, really. Things you can do by yourself is you can set up a symbol library with spirit. You can work with symbols. You can work with colors. You can do all sorts of different things as well. I have a meditation called the Rainbow Journey, which is about you experiencing color and finding your own understanding of color as well. You can do healing meditations as well, healing for self, healing for others. So there's a huge range of things you can do. Within my Confident Medium course, there's a meditation in there to help overcome barriers to confidence with working with spirit. So again, there's, as I say, there's as many meditations as there are people. So, you know, ultimately, when I look at good mediums, those who become excellent do a lot of self-development. Spiritualize the self. That's the key. But not only that, they work hard on self as well. One thing I used to do a lot of was to record my sit-ins and replay my sit-ins and listen to the types of evidence I'm giving, listening to how it unfolds, and almost like listen from the point of view of the sitter. So that then gives me an understanding of how my mediumship is functioning. Because when we're doing mediumship, we are in an altered state and we're not always totally appreciative of what we're saying or doing. So again, depending on the stage you're at, that's an intermediate to advanced stage to assess your mediumship in that way. But yeah, there's a lot of different things you can do. But sitting in the power has the greatest benefit. If you don't know why you should sit in the power, I have the 4-part series on sitting in the power that I put up on YouTube last month. And the first one, 7 reasons why you should sit in the power. Do check it out, followed by how to sit in the power. And then the last 2 videos go through common issues and challenges I see people having. If you haven't looked at those, do check them out. So hopefully that helps to answer some of your questions, Keith. But again, if you've got a specific point on something I've said, then do type it in for me. Okay. Clayton, I'm trying to work in the trance state. Do I need a circle to develop trance? I've been a workable mental medium for 5 years. So it's stages. So trance is passive. Let me see if I can just draw you a little diagram of the different states. Bear with me. Trying to draw diagrams on the hoof is fun. So quite whether this will show up or not, I do not know. But this is a diagram I use a lot within my teaching, active, passive states. In the center here is your normal state. Active states, that's working on the psychic. Active states, there is doing mediumship. Then we have the passive states. In the passive states, you have things like meditation, you have inspiration, you have healing, and at the very bottom, you have trance. So trance is the most passive of the passive states. It's important to recognize that. So basically, to do trance, you need to move through those states. You've got to be pretty comfortable being in a relaxed meditative state. You've got to be comfortable being able to do inspirational speaking. So we work in the inspiration states is the first part of developing trance. And then finally, the trance, to work properly in trance, you need a group of sitters to give you power. Just as when we're doing mediumship, we need power, trance also requires power. So you need power to do it. You cannot develop trance by yourself. Many people tell me they can, and I don't believe it. Because you can only get to a certain point. You can get to a good state of inspirational speaking. I can, by myself, move into a pretty good inspirational state, a state of light transceiving where I can speak into, say, again, a recorder. But that's not trance. It's not the same. But for me to for the presence of spirit to really come forward and be felt in the room, for the presence of spirit to come forward, and that blend to be tight and good and solid, it needs power from sitters. You need at least one sitter, generally. And again, people say you can develop trance online, but you're lacking the sitters in the room. It's harder, much harder. And for those who do a demonstration of trance online, generally they have somebody else in the room with them, giving them the power, even if it's their partner, their husband, their wife, or just one other person, giving them some power in the room, because it needs that. If you don't have anybody, it limits it. I've seen trance mediums try and do online trance with nobody present, and it doesn't work as well. So you need the power. So even if you're a medium developing trance, you're pretty much going to have to start from a certain basic level. It doesn't matter how many years you've done mediumship, I believe the trance state is different, and it's about having that relationship with your guides and allowing that to blend and develop. If you've done a lot of sitting the power and you've built that close relationship with your guides, that's a very good starting point, absolutely. But if you haven't, that is where you want to start. Start by sitting and invite the guides to blend with you during your sitting for spirit. And then we start by working inspirationally, whether that's inspirational writing, whether that's inspirational speaking, and then we move it on into sitting for trance. And with sitting for trance, often you can sit for quite some time before you even get anything happening. If you are interested in trance, I do have video on at the top of the special topics. There's one on trance mediumship. Also, there is a free interview that I did on YouTube that I did on trance. What I will do is I will link that one as well into the links in the description on the trance interview. If you go to my channel and look at interviews, you'll find there's one there on trance development. So I highly recommend that if you're interested in trance. There's a heck of a lot of good information in there. Okay, next question. Yeah, so you asked if a 12-year-old could sit in, you thought it best not to. I agree. 12-year-old, no, I don't think it's wise. So Melba, you love all my classes, but you weren't sure at the rainbow one. Maybe it'll make more sense as you keep listening to it. So the rainbow journey is an opportunity for you to find your own meanings for color. So what happens is in the meditation, you go and sit in colored rooms and blend with that color and wait and see what surfaces within you for meanings of that color. Because for me, I believe that each medium has to find their own meanings for color. Yeah, you can get a book and you can say red means this, that, and the other. But the reality is, I think that that color doesn't feel right to me. Just like if I gave you a crystal and told you this is what the crystal does, or I gave you something else that supposedly has fixed meanings. If I gave you a tarot card and said, if that card comes out every time, it must be that. You'd be like, no, it varies according to what's happening. And it does. So that's what that meditation is all about. It's a little bit different from some of my other meditations. It's kind of what I call a psychic development meditation. That's where it's targeted at. So hopefully you will come to like it. Michael, what are some book recommendations you believe every medium should read to help their knowledge base and or mediumship? With books, it's very, very hard because what I like, you may not like. What somebody else likes, you may not like. I know people who love books by White Eagle, the teachings of White Eagle, and to be honest, they've never, ever resonated with me. Whereas get me a Silver Birch book, and I love it. Silver Birch books, the teachings of Silver Birch books, fantastic. So, but then there's books on mediumship, and to be honest, it's hard with recommending books on mediumship. There's a lot out there. And different ones help in different ways. I don't like to recommend any one person's book over anybody else because I don't want people to get the hump with me. And to be honest, sometimes it's hard to recommend books over others. The book I always come back to recommending, I'll see if I can grab it for you if within reach. The book I always recommend is this one here. It's a little booklet by Harry Edwards. It's called A Guide for the Development of Mediumship. I highly recommend that. Great book. It was a chapter from his book, Life in Spirit. Very hard to get this book. It's published by Conspire Publications, part of Psychic World. They sell it through the Psychic World newspaper. but I think it's also sold from the Arthur Findlay College shop. You can buy it there. But other than that, it's very hard to get. And people online are often charging silly money for it. You know, it's tiny. It costs, I think, about £6 to buy. But I see people charging £50 on eBay or Amazon, and it's just not right. So you can get it cheap. Check out the Arthur Findlay College shop first, and they may be able to direct you to it. If you can't get this little one, you just buy Life in Spirit, the book by Harry Edwards from the Harry Edwards Healing Sanctuary, and I think it's the last chapter in the book, so that's another way you can get it. I recommend some of the books by Gordon Smith as well. The Janet and the Havoc book, Where Two Worlds Meet, is a good book as well. But yeah, there's lots of good books. Some of the old historic books are fascinating, I find as well. I'm often guided back into some of the old wonderful historic mediumship books. But again, they're not everyone's cup of tea because they're written in a certain way, a certain style, and they're not always that easy to access. I like the Gordon Higginson book, On the Side of Angels. Again, a hard book to get. Always buy it from the Arthur Findlay College shop or the SNU direct because it's published by the SNU. Otherwise, you'll pay silly money for it. That's the problem with it. But again, then there's books on spiritualism and mediumship and things like that. There's books by Maurice Barbanel, Spiritualism Today, and the other one whose name escapes me, This is Spiritualism, which is just sat over there as well. I need to look at the bookshelf. I need to turn the bookshelf around for me to see. And then I'll say that one, and that one. But again, it's probably a good question to ask in a Facebook group. What do people recommend? Go ahead and ask it in my own Facebook group if you wish. Mediumship Teachings with Martin Twycross. And what I'll do is maybe I'll put a list of some of the ones I recommend there, and if people want to add to it, they can. If you're not familiar with my Facebook group, you can join it. It's called Mediumship Teachings with Martin Twycross, for those of you on Facebook. Okay, so again, just a reminder that if you want to ask a question, you do need to be signed in to YouTube or Google to ask questions. And I work through the questions in order. If you want your question answered early, you can do a super chat, let me know, and I will answer it early. If you want to make a donation through PayPal as well, you can. There's a link at the top of the chat box. If you want to buy me a coffee, that's always appreciated as well. I don't make a charge for this class, but if you are interested in making a donation, donations are always appreciated. Okay, next question. Magdalena, any more info about your upcoming book? You're a very good source of information. I think it's very needed. So do I. It is work in progress. Whether it be finished by the end of this year, that's probably now looking more unlikely. I was reading that Glyn Edwards, it took him 10 years to write his first book. And he said, you know, writing a book takes a lot longer than you'll ever imagine. And the first one took 10 years. Now, I'm hoping it's not going to take me 10 years, but I'm beginning to understand that it's not a simple thing. And with running classes and also with doing the YouTube channel as well and all the other things I do, it's just squeezing the time in around it. And so, yeah, it's work in progress. It'll definitely be out, certainly by 2022. So it is work in progress. I am on it. But do give me a gentle reminder. Always appreciate it. Natalie, what is your view of channeling ascended masters or other beings? I've looked at it in certain healing circles and have my own awareness, but I'm curious of your feedback. You see now, as I say to you, sometimes there's hot topics, isn't there? And this is one of those hot topics. And this video is now about to offend 2/3 of the people in the mediumistic community. And when people ask me a question, it's like, do I tell you the truth, what I think, or do I soften it a bit and sugarcoat it? And in the UK, we don't have channeling. In the UK, we have trance. In the UK, you know, we do platform mediumship, we do trance, we do healing, we don't do channeling. And for me, channeling is what I would call a very form of light trance. Let me see if I can do another little diagram for you, if this will work. It may not, we'll see. So, for me, first of all, we have inspiration, and then we have what I would call channeling, and then we have what I would call light trance, medium trance, deep trance. So let me see if I can show you this. Hope this is going to work. So basically, inspiration is inspirational speaking. Could be inspirational writing, but I'm really talking about inspirational speaking. And then we have what I call channeling. And then we have the light trance state, the medium depth trance state, the deep trance state. Deep trance isn't really needed for a great deal other than physical mediumship and things like that, where you don't want phenomena happening in the room and the medium being not very deep and coming out. You know, there's something levitating. At a Gordon Higginson physical circle, there's a wonderful story of a grand piano levitating over the heads of the sitters. Now that is amazing. But what you wouldn't want is the medium to come out of the trance state and go, what's going on? And the piano drops and falls on people's heads. That would not be wise or helpful for any reason whatsoever, you see. So we want the medium deep. We want the medium out of it, not understanding what's happening in the room. That's deep trance. For most trance speaking and trance teachings or trance healing, it works primarily with the medium depth trance state. The light trance state, again, as you're learning trance, you go through that state. Now, in the light trance state, we have something called overshadowing as well, where spirit is, you're not totally in trance, but spirit is speaking through you. Now, overshadowing is very much akin to channeling. Absolutely. So channeling, when I watch people channel on YouTube, which is probably my main source of watching people channel. I've seen Esther and Jerry Hicks, Abraham Hicks in real life in the UK. I've watched them work up close to see how that worked. But beyond that, I've seen a few people doing channeling in circles and things, but not really, if I'm honest. Not what I would call proper channeling anyway. But in some circles it's encouraged. They're bringing through Princess Diana. Oh, they're bringing through Michael Jackson, and everyone's wow. And it's not. It's just complete fluff. Check out my kind of medium link with a celebrity video. It's just complete BS, for what a better terminology. So generally, but there are some mediums whose channeling I respect. You know, I have some of the Jane Roberts, Seth Speaks books. I know Suzanne Giesemann channels Sanaya. And, you know, there are channels whose the teachings are good. I like the teachings. The teachings are feel right. And so I'm not saying channeling's bad. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. I know good channels and I've seen good channeling. I've heard good channeling. I've read good channeling. But this is where the problem lies. There's a lot of crap. There's a lot of stuff out there that is just, it makes me, if I had more hair, I would pull it out. You know, I see people who are on camera. Now I'm going to channel Jesus. Let me get the Jesus spray. One spray. And then they're supposedly being Jesus. And now I'm going to do Mary for you. Another spray. And now I'm going to do Buddha. Another spray. And you know, honestly, what is said has, the quality is dire. It's not, you know, and actually what's taken place is these mediums are deluding themselves and deluding the audience. That's my personal belief. Spirit will come forward however you want them to come forward. If you will only bring spirit forward as an ascended master, they will come as an ascended master. If you will only bring spirit forward as a Native American, they will come as a Native American. If you will only bring them forward as a Buddhist monk, they will come as a Buddhist monk. If whatever you want, you'll get. If you basically clothe them, superimpose all of your wants and desires on them. But I prefer to see trance. I prefer to see a really good blend. I prefer to see the quality brilliant. Not to say that some channelers do not get good quality, because they do. So I've got nothing against channeling. That's my first point. First point is nothing against channeling. But ascended masters, yeah, right. Do you know, ascended masters are going to be sat in the spirit world and they're going to be saying, oh God, there's 5,000 people trying to channel me at once today. I've got to be everywhere at once. This is so exhausting. It's not real. I'm sorry. It's not. If you believe it to be real, it's real for you. If you believe it to be real, it's real in your belief system, your belief structure, but it's not in mine, I'm afraid. And other beings, aliens, extraterrestrials, nah. I'm trying to think of what I could say about it that's nice. You know, there's a lot of dubious beliefs out there. You know, the idea of spirit attachments. I went into one spiritualist church and somebody there who does spirit release said to me, "Oh, Martin, you've got 4 aliens attached to you." It's like, great. What am I supposed to be doing about that then, eh? 4 aliens, great. I haven't got nothing with me. Don't be stupid. It's belief systems. You know, is it possible that people have existed on other planets? Yes. Is it possible that life exists on other planets? Absolutely. We'd be crazy to think otherwise. But do they want to be channeled through us? Not necessarily. And if they did, remember, they're just a consciousness. They don't need to tell us they're an alien. The alien part is coming from us and our mind. But generally, my guides have said, and I find this to be a logical thing, for anybody to work with us from spirit as a guide, helper, or somebody we're channeling or somebody we're working with to bring forward teachings or inspiration, they have to understand the human condition. And it is a prerequisite that they themselves have touched the earth, spent time on the earth, and know the challenges faced by an incarnate human being, know the challenges that we face, so that they are able to link with us because they understand, and they are able to work with us because they understand life on earth. And that makes complete logical sense to me. So why aliens would come forward, my guides say they would be precluded. Even if they existed, they would be precluded because they don't have that aspect of knowing the earth. So that's my view, that's my guide's view. You can disagree with me if you wish. And if you channel aliens, I'm sorry, but I think you've overlain the alien concept on them. So there you go. I've just upset a lot of people. It happens. Okay, Miss Silver, I heard someone say there's different mechanics for bringing forth more information. What do they mean by mechanic? Could you give an example? Now, the problem is when you say something like that, I don't know what that person meant by that. So what you actually have to do is ask them, not me. So that is a problem. Like, yeah, and people bring to me, "Oh, this other medium's taught this. What do they mean?" I was like, I haven't a clue. You'll have to ask them. And see, I wouldn't teach you there's different mechanics for bringing forth more information. Of course not. The mechanics are the same regardless. The mechanics of mediumship are the mechanics at mediumship. There is no other mechanics. Yes, there's techniques you can use for drilling deeper into evidence. Yes, there's techniques you can do to try different psychic senses, different clairs. But mediumship fundamentally works through the psychic senses, the clairs, the clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, clairknowing, and to a lesser extent, the clairalience, clairessence, and clairgustance, the smelling and tasting. The replicas of our 5 physical senses operate psychically, and then we have the knowing, clairknowing, claircognizance, call it what you will. That's how mediumship works. And mediumship is about a blend with spirit, and we receive that information from the blend. It's as simple as that. There is no other mechanics we can use. There are tools we can use for drilling deeper, but there are so many that I have a course. I have a course on that. One of my courses is Getting Better Evidence. Again, 4 classes. It runs for about 2 hours each. Pre-recorded now because I have run it in the past, £60 if you're interested. And that entire course is dedicated to talking about that exact topic, how to drill deeper into evidence. And it depends on the type of evidence as to how you would go deeper into it. And there's a multitude of ways. There's not one way, there's many ways. So that's the key to bear in mind. So I can't really tell you what the mechanic is that they mean because I'm not them, but I know there are a variety of ways of pushing into the information. But again, can I talk about them now? We're going to be short on time to do that. So I'm going to direct you into that course if you're interested in getting into that in any more depth. Okay, Natalie, do you know of any modern day physical mediums that are practicing stroke alive? Oh dear. So there are current modern day physical mediums. Examples that spring to mind is Scott Milligan is an example. I like Scott. He's a nice guy. I believe him to be genuine, authentic. However, there are other people who work who I have my doubts, I have my reservations, I must be honest. There was an event whereby a medium was filmed on a CCTV camera, deluding the audience as to the physical phenomena taking place. This happened once at the Arthur Findlay College many years ago. Similar sort of thing. Someone set up a camera in the room to see if somebody was faking, and it was caught, and there were. Same thing happened as well at a centre in the UK where that happened as well. And again, yes, they got caught, and a lot of people don't believe it. Other mediums famous physical mediums have admitted fraud with things like cobwebs and lights, moving lights around the room. They've admitted fraud even. And the problem is, once you've admitted fraud, can you be taken seriously with your mediumship again? I don't know. There is a theory that physical mediums get put under so much pressure to perform, to create phenomena, that if the phenomena is not forthcoming from spirit, that ultimately there could be a potential put upon them to create it themselves. I don't know how much that is true, but I can understand that logic in there. So I know Stuart Alexander is another physical medium who I respect and believe to be genuine. But there, as I say, there's a lot of other ones out there who will tell you they're physical mediums. Generally, I would say if to go and see a physical medium, you have to be either invited, vetted, checked out, and it's not advertised just to anybody, then generally they're authentic. If somebody offers that you can come and see them for £50 and anybody can turn up, generally I've got my reservations, because physical mediumship needs the right energy to make it happen. So if it doesn't have the right energy, problems develop. There's famous stories of people. Gordon Higginson got burned and got hurt twice where on physical seances where people misbehaved, where somebody once tried to record him without permission and it created a problem. And there was another occasion as well where somebody did something stupid. People have turned the lights on in physical seances and it causes problems and shock to the medium. You have to be very careful. You can't just take a photograph of someone in a physical seance without permission. So again, a good physical seance will screen a lot of issues out of it. But you know, and you have to question yourself what is taking place. I'm a firm believer that light in a seance room is great. I used to know George Cranley, who was involved with the Noah's Ark Society, very well known investigator and physical mediumship, and he told me that you cannot really accept anything as materialization unless there's some degree of light in the room, because it can be faked so easily. You know, in the olden days, they used to sprinkle the floor with talcum powder to make sure no one's got out of their seat and walked. And I think that's a great practice. I really do. And I would be all for infrared cameras in the room, passive infrared, that's not actually projecting an infrared beam in, but just picks up the body heat of people in the room. You know, it's not actually putting anything into the room. It's just a sensor that detects it. Again, people argue, oh, you know, you can't have that in the room. It creates an energy. But generally, spirit could work with that if they wanted to work with it. They could. So physical mediumship, there is genuine physical mediumship. Absolutely. There are genuine physical mediums. Absolutely. But there are also physical mediums out there, I believe, who are not doing it properly. There's also physical mediums, I believe, out there who potentially may be fraudulent. But you've got to decide for yourself. You know, if you've got to check what's going on. Is there an intelligence taking place? I know a lot of people who regurgitate things and bring them up, or bring stones out of various orifices, and the logic. Just what's the logic in that? To me, there is no logic. It doesn't show an intelligence of spirit. I would much rather have my loved one manifested in the room. I'd much rather have the voice of spirit manifested in the room. I'd much rather have absolute proof. So you've got to question what's taking place and decide for yourself. So now I've just alienated a whole bunch of people who know about physical mediumship and don't like it, what I've said. You know, and each physical medium has a huge group of followers who believe that physical medium could do no wrong. And it's hard. It's hard. I know a lot of people who are skeptical of some physical mediums, and I've been on forums for many years where that skepticism exists. So it's challenging. But I have personally been asked by certain physical mediums to put on a, can we host them? And £30 a head, don't care who comes. Now that's not real. Really, that's not really the way you would do it. That's not the way of managing a physical seance. For me, that's just making money. And if people charge a lot of money and fit a lot of people in, you've got to start questioning it. The late medium Helen Duncan, she got to the point of charging a lot for sittings and working a lot doing sittings, and it affected her mediumship, began to wane a bit. It wasn't right. You cannot do physical mediumship as a commodity. It's just not possible. Anyway, there you go. Physical mediumship. Let me get back to questions. You're getting me into trouble tonight. Absolutely. Michael, what is some advice you have for getting better evidence? Again, if you have not purchased it, I cannot recommend more strongly the Getting Better Evidence course, because I can't summarize the 8-9 hours of classes we had then into just 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes. It's hard. Getting better evidence, the evidence you get depends upon where you are on your mediumship journey. So the types of evidence you get will change always. Play to your strengths. Push. Try and get different things. There's different exercises we can use to get different evidence. That's what you need to be doing. If you always just start with description, you're going to limit yourself. So we got to look for other things. Get a list of evidence and see what you work with routinely, see what you don't, and then learn to work with some of the others as best you can. But I go through phases where I can work really well with health and it's phenomenal. The health is all superimposed upon me and I can talk about it to the nth degree. Other times I work really well with personality. Other times I can get dates really well. Sometimes names will come in really well, but other times they won't. It's variable. That's the thing you've got to understand. It is totally variable. But, there isn't a simple piece of advice I can give you. Other than you've got to stay with it. Good evidence. I've been working now with mediumship and development for 20 years, my own development. And still there's more to unfold to get better evidence. It never stops. How can it? And I've been through phases where I've had some amazing evidence and then it goes away again. It's like, right, I've got to now try and change something to get that back. Or maybe I don't. Maybe where I am is where I'm meant to be. But don't compare yourself to other mediums, because you'll just end up beating yourself up. It's not good. I never recommend people compare themselves to others, because comparing yourself to other people is challenging, because you're not them. We don't compare each tree to another tree and say, you're not as good as that tree. No, you don't. Each one is perfect in its own right. So we've got to go with that. So I haven't covered the question to as much as you would like, I know that, but it's very, very hard to say what advice to get better evidence, because I did distill my advice out for getting better evidence and it became 4 classes, lasting 8+ hours. So that exists, getting better evidence, if you're interested. Next question. Evio, do you see spirit clear or in opaque during mediumship? Neither. See spirit within our minds. Mediumship is of the mind. I've never seen spirit in a room at all. It's said the average medium in their lifetime will see spirit objectively outside of their head once in their lifetime or twice. I've not had it yet. I don't know many people who do. Most of us see it within our minds. And when people say, oh, you've got your dad stood with you, what's happening is it's projecting them. That's where the pull is. And dad wants to be stood there with the hands on their shoulders or around them. And that's the feeling you get. And if you like, your mind just projects dad standing there. But dad's not really standing there. And we can't see any features of dad neither. It's just the impression of dad standing there. Yes, there are some mediums who clairvoyantly see spirit within the room. But that, again, it's not what I would call the norm. And if they do see it, they would not see spirit as if they're fully formed objective. They would see them more mist-like. I don't know, really. I don't see it myself, so you're kind of relying upon what they say. But in general, the vast majority of mediums do not see spirit at all outside of their mind. Just as if I ask you to now imagine your front door or imagine a red door, you'll see a red door appear within your mind. It's the same with spirit. It's in here, not out there. Hopefully that helps answer the question. Okay. Keith, is it a good thing to practice lifting your mind to spirit during the day? Like whilst doing the dishes, etc. Not for links, but rather to practice connecting and holding the connection. Not really, no. And I'll tell you why. The practice we do of blending with spirit is best done in sitting in the power. But if you want to link to spirit and replicate what you're doing is when you're doing mediumship in a class, circle, sitting, you're better off doing a class or circle and actually doing it for real. Because you can't tell when you've dropped out of the link very well just by doing it yourself. You'll find out when the evidence stops coming from spirit. Yeah, you're falling out of the link. That's how we find out when it's not working very well. We know we're not blended with the link. So really, you need to be doing it to find out when you've moved away. So, but I can't pretend to do mediumship by linking. Am I linking now? Yeah. Oh, I think I might be doing mediumship. No, I'm not. You can't really do it. You've got to be in the mood, either in sitting for spirit, sitting in the power, which is the best practice of blending with spirit, or just doing it for real. I would always recommend doing it for real. I wouldn't recommend trying to practice linking with spirit, doing the dishes, because who have you got to work with? They're not going to come forward if there's no recipient. Spirit are not going to say, well, I'm going to link with them now just for fun. No, there's no reason. If you've got someone in front of you who belongs to a person in spirit, spirit will come forward. But if you haven't, they won't. There's just no logic to it. That's why I don't like things like Facebook readings. If someone posts a picture, but that person's not there anymore who posted the picture. Yeah, they want people to post comments and stuff, but yeah, right. So you try and link with their loved one, but because you're not in communication with the recipient and the recipient's not going to give you feedback in real time, why would they come forward? What is in it for them to come forward? It's very hard to do that. It takes a good medium to be able to do that. So it's not a good practice. So best practice, sit it in front of you. Best practice, do mediumship at the right time. The right time is when you're doing mediumship, not when you're doing the dishes. So sorry if that doesn't fit for you, doesn't feel right, but that's what I recommend. In fact, my next video coming out, well, I say the next one, but the one after the next one is some tips on how to practice mediumship, and I'll be talking about some of those points I've just made. Anastasia, what process do you go through to connect with spirit right before you read? Open the crown, connect to the star chakra. Oops. Oh, well, we're going to have a few more of these difficult questions, aren't we? I do not do anything with chakras for connecting to spirit. I don't muck about with any of that. How would you know your chakras are even open or closed? If your chakras are closed, you're dead. Check out my video on the myths of mediumship. One of the ones in there I talk about, closing down. It's just bonkers, really. These ideas I get taught, I don't know where they come from. I've no idea how to open a chakra. I've no idea no idea what a star chakra even is. And the problem is teachings like that just muck up mediumship, because people think, oh, to connect to spirit, I've got to open my chakras, and I don't know how to open them. No one's taught me how to open them. And they'll come to me and say, how do I open my chakras? And I'll say, you don't. You do mediumship. And if the chakras are open, great. But who can say they are and who can say they aren't? Who can see the chakras? Nobody. So how does anybody even know they're open? This is the whole point. And I'm a big fan of Harry Edwards, whose book I showed you before. Harry Edwards, he developed the finest teachings on spiritual healing. And he looked at every practice and said, does this help? Does it hinder? Does it get in the way, or does it help? And if it gets in the way, throw it away. Get rid of it. And I believe things like opening chakras and doing this or that, it just gets in the way. It's rituals and you don't need any of it. Check out my rituals video as well. Highly recommend that one. So what do I do to connect with spirit right before I do a sitting, or before I go up on a platform? What I do is I set my intent with spirit. I'll say, I'm going to be doing sit-ins, and whoever links to the sitters, you're welcome to come forward and work with me. That's what I want. If I'm on platform, I'm going to be doing a demonstration of mediumship. Whoever belongs to the people in the audience, you're welcome to work with me. And I set my intent with my guides. Like, this is what I'm doing. This is what we'd like. We'd like good evidence. We'd like strong communicators if it's a demonstration in front of a big audience. So we set the intent of what we like. Then we leave it in the hands of spirit. I said that I would like to be used as a channel to bring people together, to connect people, to bring people together in a reunion. I would like it to work, of course, but then I leave it in Spirit's hands. I can't do nothing more than ask. Set my intent, ask, and let it be, and then just work in the moment. So it's as simple as that. Do I open my crown chakras, bring the power up, faff about my kundalini? No. Don't touch any of that because it's pointless. It actually gets in the way. If you've got to go through a process of trying to open yourself to Spirit, then it's not going to work very well. You know, simply put, to connect to Spirit, get excited. What I teach in the Connecting to Spirit class and also module 1 of the study program, there's these different techniques. You have to work out which techniques work the best for you. You have to test and trial and work out what works for you. Remember that every medium is different. I don't like mediums who say, this is how you connect to Spirit, and that's their way. And you try it and it doesn't work for you. There's a multitude of ways. There's as many ways as there are mediums, but you've got to use, I can give you 10 different techniques, and you need to put them together in different orders and see which techniques help you connect to Spirit. That's what I mean by I talk about self-development as well. Self-development isn't always done by self, but you have to do the work. Gordon Higginson, who a medium I'm very fond of, who I've created the Gordon Higginson tribute site as a memorial to him. He never taught any of his students how to do mediumship. He said, go away and find out for yourself. He would give them a job to do, and they'd say, how to do it? And they'd say, you go away and find out. And that's a really profound way of teaching, because the student has to find out for themselves how their own mediumship works. If I tell you, you do this, imagine this, you go through this visualization, and then you connect it to Spirit, and you do it and it doesn't work for you, you'll just think I'm a lousy teacher. But if I tell you, here's 12 different visualizations, one of them might work for you, here's affirmations, here's different practices you can do, here you need to work on empowered breathing, you need to do this, that, and the other. Go away, trial each one, put them in power, try them together, see if they work well together, see what doesn't, see what you like, see what doesn't, see what works well for you. And over the course of a few months, work with all these techniques and see what works for you. You'll be a much better medium at the end of it because you've done it for yourself. You're not following what anyone else has told you to do. So there you go, Anastasia. Got a bit more into that one than I thought I was going to get, didn't I? Okay. Michael, do you think there's a possibility to go from seeing, hearing subjectively to seeing, hearing objectively? Do you want the simple answer or the long answer? The simple answer is no. The long answer is it could be possible in the very rare circumstances, but I don't think so, no. I don't know of any mediums who hear Spirit routinely. So think about that. No mediums I know who can hear Spirit all the time or hear Spirit objectively. Even the finest mediums who hear Spirit, hear within their mind, in their head, not objectively, and they hear snippets. They hear words spoken. The finest clairaudient mediums we had, Helen Hughes, Gordon Higginson, Estelle Roberts, you know, they had that ability, but it was very, very rare. You know, they are 3 in a million, really are. So it's not something that us normal folk can aspire to easily. If it's there, it's there. If it works, it works. But no, you know, so it's not just a case of keep developing and then it's objective. No, it's not. Mediumship functions through your imagination. With the imagination, it's very hard to project things out into the room as real. If you do, it's called hallucinations. And if you do, and it becomes too real from your imagination, then it becomes a mental illness. So mediumship is meant to function within the mind. It's meant to function within the imagination. The language of the imagination is imagery and feelings. So that's how mediumship works. If you have what I call an auditory modality it's an NLP representational system. Some people are what I call auditory people, but they're rare. Most people are either visual or kinesthetic, meaning that they work predominantly with seeing or feeling. But if you're auditory, your mind creates words. The information comes from Spirit, but you create it into words. And it's not Spirit speaking, it's you creating it into words generally. If you want to know more about that, then Mediumship in the Mind, I have a video on that. One of my videos is called Mediumship in the Mind. I go into it there. I also discuss it in a great deal of detail in Getting Better Evidence. I also talk about it in Fundamentals of Mediumship. And so there's various different teachings that I cover that in a great deal of detail. But generally, the nature of your mind creates what you get, but the vast majority of mediums, it's seeing and feeling with a bit of knowing, an occasional bit of hearing, but hearing is so rare. So to be able to objectively hear, not easily, no. To be able to objectively see, remember that I said it, the average medium sees once or twice in a lifetime? No, not easy. So can you go from it? There's an outside chance of 1 in a million, maybe less, because even but yeah. So don't hold your hope out for it. But to be a good medium, you don't need that. That's the point. You can be a fabulous medium without that. Most fabulous mediums I know don't see objectively, hear objectively. So it's not needed. You appreciate the open discussion. I'll probably get shot for it though. There's a series on Netflix where they're showing potential physical mediumship, a voice modulator. She claimed that she has an ectoplasm, but it was a little bit dubious. I was curious. Yeah, I've not seen the Netflix series, so I can't comment. I don't know who that would be. But again, you know, the thing is, we have to look at it for ourselves. My very first experience within spiritualism and mediumship, I used to live in a house with a guy who was a spiritualist, and you always used to go to church on a Sunday, and he used to say to me, Martin, come to church with me on a Sunday. And I'd say no. I never went, didn't believe in it, didn't want to know it. Then one day he said, we've got a demonstration of physical mediumship at the church, and even a skeptic like you would be able to see the reality of it. So I said, well, what is physical mediumship? It's objective. Well, great. So it doesn't need a belief system to make it work. Brilliant. And what takes place? Phenomena takes place within the room. Noises, raps, things moving. So even you will be able to appreciate it. Great. So I went along to see this demonstration of what was transfiguration. Transfiguration is where an ectoplasmic mask moves away from the face, and molded into it is spirit's features. So you see loved ones appear in front of the medium's face. I've actually seen genuine transfiguration several times with a lady who's now in spirit, sadly. But I went along to see this transfiguration, and all I can say was that he was a guy sat in a chair, pulling funny faces and gurning, making strange grunting noises, and it was the least convincing thing I've ever seen. As somebody who was not into this movement, as somebody who didn't have a great deal of interest, I just thought all spiritists were absolutely mad if they believed this to be anything other than just a crazy man gurning. Now, I recognize now with my experience that maybe people were clairvoyantly seeing images appear on the medium's face, but they were not objective in the least. And they could have been, spirit could have drawn close, and if you had a developed ability of clairvoyance, you may have seen them. But that's not physical mediumship, because physical mediumship is objective to everybody. So remember that if you're observing physical mediumship, it has to be seen in the room by everybody. You go to some transfiguration dems where the people on this side saw something, everyone in the middle saw nothing, and the people on the right hand side saw nothing, or people at the front saw something and everybody back over saw nothing. Again, that's not true physical mediumship, because it should be observable by all. That's the point. So yeah, I always say question things, and spirit will always say, and they do, spirit always say, question the spirit. Question the validity. Question, is there intelligence behind what is taking place? But I don't think physical mediumship often lends itself to being portrayed in public to people who don't have a degree of understanding of what's taking place. Because the energy of people who do not understand it affects it, just like it affects trance. And it is so delicate what is taking place that it can collapse quite easily. So yeah. So yes, have an interest in it, but be curious. Absolutely. Melba, his evidence course, I got it and it's awesome, really deep. Wonderful. Glad you enjoy it. Evior, can you choose who you want your spirit guide to be? No. You can choose how they portray themselves. But spirit guides will be attracted to you. There's an attraction takes place. They will work with us, but they gain benefit from working with us. And we'll have some guides who are there from the beginning, but we'll have other guides who come and go depending upon our stage of development. For example, if you have no interest in physical mediumship, there's no point a guide who specializes in physical mediumship working with you. Until you're ready to start working properly with trance, it's unlikely that guides are going to come forward and speak through you. It doesn't really make sense that those guides will be necessarily there until you're at the point where you need them. My guides often liken it to, they often say to me, the people who come forward different stages, just like your teachers do in this world. So kindergarten, you'll have someone who's good with general. At primary school, again, a generalist. When you start getting to secondary school and start going to further education and university level, you're getting more and more specialized. And so it is from the spirit world. We'll have some guides who are always there with us throughout our entire life, and they play roles, whereas others will come in when they're needed. They'll come in when our work is at the point where their skill set can be used. So it's important to recognize that. But can you choose your guides? I don't really know if you can, to be honest. Do they choose you? Yes. Is there a contract made, an agreement made between you and your guides before you incarnate on the earth? I don't know. It's possible, but I don't know. But the thing that you can do is your needs and wants can clothe how they appear. That can happen, and happens a lot. If you need a Native American, you'll get a Native American. If you want a Native American called Running Water, you'll have a Native American called Running Water. Spirit will appear however they want you, however you want them to appear. They want to do the work, but if the work means they have to take upon themselves the guise of a Native American, if working with you means they have to be called a certain name, they will. They will. To meet your need, just so the work can take place. You may then choose to recognize through time that actually they're not Native American, and it falls away. And actually that name's not relevant, and it falls away. But that's there you go. Okay. Madeline, if you appreciate my honesty. I appreciate my honesty, but I'm not sure everybody else will. Anna, how to automatic writing, how to do automatic writing. Now, the problem you've got with automatic writing is that automatic, again, we come through stages. I showed you the stages there, didn't I, of trance. Let me just quickly show you the stages of inspiration. Hopefully this is going to make sense. Okay, so this is inspiration. So we start with an idea. So when we're training ourselves to do inspiration, to begin with, an idea pops in our mind, or a word. It could be an idea or a word. Or then we get like a thought will come forward. And a thought comes forward that can be worked upon even more than a word or an idea. And then you get a bunch of linked thoughts or a bunch of linked words that you can speak upon. The words you're using is your own, but we're working in the inspirational state, receiving several thoughts and words that we construct words from for ourselves. The next thing that happens is you get a flow of words coming together, or a flow of thoughts that are almost seamless. And what happens is with the inspirational speaking, we can then start talking. And trance is like this to a degree as well. With trance, there's just a flow of information coming from the medium's mouth, albeit it's created from spirit. And then the final bit is what you would call automatic, whereby the medium has no idea of what's being said until it is said, or no idea of what's being written until they read it back. This applies to both automatic writing, this applies to inspirational writing, inspirational speaking. And so with inspirational writing, the ideas and thoughts come in and you're writing them down, or the words start to flow and you're writing them down, but you're conscious of what you're writing. And when it goes to automatic is when we've lost the consciousness of the words. So we're writing, but we don't even know what we're writing until we actually read it. So you cannot start doing automatic writing. It's impossible for anybody generally to have that ability at the surface. What happens is you have to train yourself to move down this process, just as you had to train yourself to move down this process as well with trance. It's the same thing. We have to start by working with inspirational writing, and it starts with just a thought, or starts with just ideas or occasional words, and then linked ideas or linked words, and it builds from there. Then we get a flow coming, and then that stays for a while. But a lot of people never get to the point of automatic writing where their mind is absent from it. Now, some people also teach that automatic writing is actually physical mediumship, where spirit is moving your hand. Now, that's not the commonly accepted thought of automatic writing. Automatic writing is where it's automatic and the mind is suppressed and out of it. The mind is not even aware of what is written. Now, Gordon Higginson, the medium I keep speaking of, Gordon Higginson. If anybody doesn't know who Gordon Higginson is, no, I can't take it off the wall. It's stuck. I forgot that. I'll stick it on the wall properly. Anyone who wants to know who Gordon Higginson is, that is Gordon Higginson. I do have a picture on the wall, but I forgot that I glued it on properly, so you can't get it off. So Gordon Higginson did a fabulous experiment where it was an excellent medium. He demonstrated a demonstration of mediumship in front of an audience, but he also had a pen and piece of paper. And while he was doing links, his hand was moving in automatic writing. So he's doing a link, but his hand is also moving. And then he read out what he'd written, and they were also communications from spirit for different people in the room that came through at the same time as he was working. Yet he had no idea what those communications were, and he had no idea what he was writing until it was read out. That is pure automatic writing. That is automatic writing because he had no idea, and it was taking place whilst he was doing something else as well. Does that make sense? So yes. So that is what automatic writing is. So to get to automatic writing, it's going to take you a while. So you need to start by doing inspirational writing, and you've got to see if you enjoy it. You know, there's no point trying to become an automatist if you're not into it. So I hope that makes sense. So Silver, I didn't understand the meaning of the word mechanic in context with mediumship. Glad to know how mechanics just means techniques. Well, technically, it's not just techniques, no. The mechanics is how something operates. So, for example, I do have one of my mediumship class videos, class 4, which is the mechanics of mediumship. And also in my courses, the fundamentals of mediumship there, that one also covers the mechanics. And Getting Better Evidence covers the mechanics in even more detail. But basically, the mechanics is how mediumship works, and that's effectively it. And it's the mechanisms through which it works. It's not necessarily techniques themselves aren't mechanics. Techniques is what we use to get results, but the mechanics is the mechanism through which it works. For example, mediumship needs power. You need power. That's part of the mechanics. Mediumship, you need to connect to the spirit. Well, that's part of the mechanics. The information flows through the subconscious mind. That's part of the mechanics. It uses the psychic senses, the clairs. That's part of the mechanics. That's what I'm saying when with the mechanics. You need to understand how it all works and the mechanism of which it works. So it doesn't matter how you do mediumship. The mechanics is the same for everybody. But the techniques we all may use may be different, and how we receive information will be different. But the mechanics of overall how mediumship works is the same. I can see a book coming on. This is going to be in the book anyway. So there you go. Tess, thank you for the session. I feel your passion for your students and I'm excited to study mediumship again. Wonderful. I think mediumship is so exciting. I really do. It's an amazing thing. You know, it's miraculous, really. That it's communication between this seen world and the unseen world. It's communication between those who are alive and walking this earth versus those who've stepped away, who've lost their physical body and no longer have a voice. It is amazing. It is miraculous. Absolutely. EVO, yes, I used to buy into the chakra crap too. I found it has nothing to do with mediumship. The problem is it has nothing to do with mediumship mechanics. It does, you focusing on it does not help your mediumship. And that's why if people say to me, why don't I teach opening and closing the chakras? Simply because it just complicates it. It's unnecessary. I try and strip everything out of mediumship that's not needed. So all you're left with is what is truly needed. That's all we really need. Madeleine, what happens to the soul if someone dies early? For example, euthanasia. This is a challenging one. Different spirit guides teach different things. You must understand, I am not in the spirit world. So all I can tell you is what I've read, what's come through my own trance teaching and things like that. Silver Birch teaches, and my own guides have taught, that really there's a time for the soul to leave, and that every experience that we have contains value, and we should never try and terminate life early, because there's an experience to be gained by that soul. Even when we think there isn't, there is. And so if you ask me, do I support euthanasia? The compassionate part of me thinks, yes, if someone really is suffering and their life is completely unbearable, wouldn't it be kind to put them out of their suffering like we do a pet, an animal? But that part of me is the caring, compassionate person who doesn't want to see people suffer. But the part of me that it has the spiritual teachings says, well, maybe there's an experience that we're meant to gain by going through that will help us at some later stage, that we shouldn't deny ourselves or deny anybody else. And so if we listen to what the guides like Silver Birch say, and my own guides have said, is that there is a time to come and a time to go, and we shouldn't try and take anyone before their time. And however, if someone does pass through euthanasia, will they be judged for it? No. Will that hold them back in the spirit world to a great degree? Probably not, no. I don't believe there's no punishment for it, but maybe they might themselves disagree that actually, do you know, there was something to be learned there that I didn't really spend enough time with, that perhaps I could have learned. I don't know. I'm not in spirit. It's a very hard question to answer. When we get into the questions like that, we're really getting into philosophical questions, and they're quite hard to answer. But I think somebody who was passed through euthanasia, or somebody who took their own life because they couldn't face the challenges of the earth, they're going to be met with love and compassion. They're going to be helped. They're going to be healed. They're going to be cared for. They're going to just be met with love, basically. So I don't believe there's any form of punishment, nothing like that, no. So I hope that helps. In the UK, euthanasia is not legal, so we don't generally have it. But I know in some countries in Europe it is. Running water, yeah. You enjoyed that joke about a Native American running water, yes. Lots of names for guides that make us giggle. Anastasia, thank you, Martin, for doing this. My pleasure. So just a reminder, if you want to ask a question and you're watching the live stream, you do need to be logged into either YouTube or Google to ask a question. You can ask a question using the super chat, or if you want to make a donation, you can use super chat. And if you want to make a donation through PayPal, you're more than welcome. I do this because I know how much it helps people. But if you do want to contribute or buy me a coffee, that's always appreciated as well. So, and also, if you are enjoying this on the replay, do hit the like button. Do put a comment in the comment box. That does help the YouTube algorithm as well. If any of you have not subscribed to the channel and you enjoy my teachings, then do subscribe. That also helps the algorithm, YouTube, a great deal as well. And if you subscribe and hit the bell, then you do get notifications when I release videos as well. So if you've not subscribed, I highly recommend doing that. Okay, next question. So yeah, the Netflix one I haven't seen, so I'm not really able to comment on that without seeing it. Evie, chakras is from India, and only they know what chakras really is about and don't know how it is incorporated into mediumship to begin with. It came in through Theosophy, to be honest. Annie Besant and Madame Blavatsky, and Theosophy in the late 1890s, early 1900s, C.W. Leadbeater. They brought all that Eastern tradition over into the UK, spiritualist, and probably America as well. That's where the chakras came in from. But generally, you don't need them. And yes, chakras are a part of the Sanskrit Hindu tradition. But again, I don't think even they talk about them in terms of opening them. I don't know quite how that bit surfaced. Because I know that when they talk about them, they don't talk about them necessarily in that way. So yes. So have we run out of questions? I can't see any more questions. If you have a question, you can type it in. If there's a topic you would like me to talk about as well, you can type it in. If there's anything you'd like me to cover in my videos that I do on YouTube, I do them on different topics. I have got probably the next 4 or 5 topics sorted out, but I'm always open to more topics on anything you'd like me to talk about. So you can put them in the chat box as well. You can also, if you're watching this on the replay, you can type in comment as well on anything you'd like me to cover in my classes, in my YouTube videos as well. I like your teaching and honesty a lot, Jacqueline. Thank you. I think we have to be honest. You know, you don't want me pretending to be some other teacher. You don't want me giving you somebody else's ideas of what I should say. I teach it the way I see it. And, you know, I do recognize I'm a bit of a skeptical medium. That's always the way I've been. I've got a background in science. I've got a degree in physics, background in environmental science. And I need evidence. If you're going to tell me something is real, I need evidence. If you're telling me you're channeling Archangel Michael, well, you better give, you know, I'd like to hope Archangel Michael is a pretty evolved soul. I'd like to hope that what is coming through Archangel Michael is phenomenally good. And if it's not, I don't believe you. And this is the problem I have. If you're going to claim to channel some of the most evolved beings, then what you bring through had better be some of the most fabulous of all spiritual teachings. And if it's not, there's probably either it's not them or there's delusion taking place. That's the problem we have, and there's so much of it about. And you know, one of the reasons that I started doing my videos on YouTube was because of some of the things I kept finding. I remember when I first started, one of the highest ranking videos on YouTube was of a lady who was a little course she'd done on mediumship, and it had over 100,000 views, and it was way up there at the top of the rankings. And in some of the first statements she made, she said, whatever you do, don't ever go into trance because it will kill you. And it's like, what? It will kill you? How will it kill you? And I think, well, I do trance. I'm still alive. Gordon Higginson did trance. All the famous mediums of the past, all of them were trance mediums. It never killed them. And other people say, oh, but you'll die early. And again, I made a list of all the ages, all these famous mediums pass out. And all of them got well into their 70s, some of them 80s, some of them 90s. And we're going back a bit. They were good ages. Mediumship doesn't kill you. It can't. You know, it's pretty crazy, isn't it? Okay, a few more questions then. So, Anastasia, in the afterlife, which spouse would somebody be with? Now, the problem is we think of the spirit world like this world. What if I said you could be with everybody you loved? What if I said you could be with more than one person at once? What if I said you could be in 2 places at once with 2 different people? How would that change your perception of spirit, which I believe it's possible in the spirit world? So if you love somebody and truly, truly loved them and they passed, and then you met somebody else and you truly love them as well, I believe you can be shared. You can be with both. You don't have to pick or choose. But if you're with somebody here and you don't like them, you don't get on, and you want to be shot of them, and you know you get divorced, you don't have to be with them in spirit. It's your choice. It's your choice who you spend time with. Just like you spend time with family and friends here, you can spend time with family and friends in the spirit world. And I think the need to, if you like, to be wedded to somebody is not such an essential thing within the spirit world when we recognize the nature of eternity. I don't think we necessarily have to have that degree of I'm with this person for eternity. Nice as it is, though. You know, I love my wife. I don't mind spending eternity with my wife. That'd be quite pleasant, actually. But for some, but I think the point being is that I've existed before I came to Earth. I will exist afterwards. I've had a multitude of experiences before. I will have a multitude of experiences afterwards. There'll be people who come through my life, people I'm affectionate for, fond of, I will love, and I will be able to have connections and spend time with all of them. So I don't think it's necessarily a case of having to choose one. Hope that helps. Okay, Omar. You talk about mediumship and healing going together. I'm also doing exorcisms. Do you think mediumship and entity removals go together? Now, again, we've got quite a few hot topics coming up in this video, and some of you are not going to enjoy this, those who believe in exorcisms. I spoke earlier on about a guy I know who did spirit release, and I went into a church and he told me that I had 4 aliens with me. Another day he told me I had 9 entities with me. It's just complete crap, to be truthful. I know another person who used to do entity removal, and it was just a con to take money from people, charge £100 a pop, and a way of making money. For me, do you know who needs to remove spirit? Nobody, because spirit cannot get attached. There's no such thing as possession. There's no such thing as obsession even. Despite what you see in horror movies, it does not exist. In all my experience now of 20 years, and I've investigated this a lot as well. Don't mistake me for someone who knows nothing about it as well. On my video on earthbound spirits and lost souls, I got some quite offensive comments that those people are banned on the channel now. People saying that I knew nothing about it because I'd not looked into it. I looked into it a lot. I did a course on spirit release with a well-known spirit release practitioner to see what it was about. And I can honestly say it was the only course in my entire career of doing mediumship and spiritual courses that every part of my entire being screamed, "This is crazy," throughout every second of that course. It was 12 weeks of torture. I went to every single one just so I could understand it and understand what people get taught. We used to walk in the room and we'd all get sprayed with a spray to remove any negative entities from me. Yes, for God's sake, what that's that about, honestly. And, you know, people have come to me for healing and they say, "Oh, I've got this spirit attachment. Can you remove it?" And there's nothing there. There's nothing there. As much as I would love to remove it, how can I if there's nothing there? It's their mind that's got the problem. That's the issue. It's their mind, you see. So I believe lost souls, earthbound spirits, possession, exorcisms, spirit release, it's all a belief system that you either buy into or you don't. But I'm a scientist. I'm a physicist by training. I need evidence. I don't get any evidence from it. There is no evidence within it. I went to see a very famous spirit release practitioner do a talk, and he talked about how he used hypnotherapy to remove entities. He tells people, "You've got an entity. I'm going to take you into hypnosis and the entity will talk to me and I will release it." So that's what he does. Now, I'm a hypnotherapist, trained hypnotherapist. I've worked with hypnotherapy for a long time. I've also done past life regressions and things. And I know that with regression, it's not necessarily real, but there is a therapeutic benefit. I see that. So I asked a question, put my hand up, asked a question, and I said, I'm a medium. For me to prove I am working with spirit, I get evidence. Have you ever asked any of these people who are attached, these attachments, these entities, for any evidence about themselves to prove they're real? And his answer to me was, "That's irrelevant." And I said, "No, it's not, because without proof, then this is just a fairy story. Their mind is quite capable of creating it all, as I've seen multiple times when we do, when we work with hypnotherapy. The mind is very powerful and creative. We can do all sorts of things with regression to resolve past problems, but none of it is real. It's just construct of the mind to remove the issue. So I've investigated it a lot and I see no evidence for it whatsoever. And no disrespect to anyone who does it. If you do it and that's your bag, then great. That's your bag, then great. But it's not mine. It's not my belief system. And the more I investigate it, the less I believe any of it, to be honest. And the number of people who have told me I've got entities with me and I've not had them cleansed and I'm fine. So, you know. But how can spirit attach themselves to us? It's not logical. Just as spirits can't get stuck, trapped, it's not logical. We've got to look for the intelligence here. And if there was ever a problem with someone from spirit, who's going to fix it? Spirit. Spirit's going to fix it. How can we think that we have the power to fix it? Spirit guides and helpers will fix it, not us. We don't need to do it. So do I think mediumship and entity removals go together? No, I don't recommend that anyone does exorcisms. There's no proof. There's no... Can people gain benefit? If someone's paranoid there's something there, you go along and do elaborate cleansing ceremony, they'll tell you afterwards it's gone. Because in their mind, if it was just a construct of their mind, when you've done it, it's gone. And I've never encountered an evil spirit as well. People say, "Oh, but what about the evil spirits?" I've never encountered an evil spirit yet. Many of these great mediums say there's no such thing as evil spirits. There's people here that we get evil here, but what it is people here, are not evolved souls. Each of us is a different stage of spiritual evolution. We have evil acts, but not evil people. Yes, a multitude of evil acts, we might call the person evil, but it's the act that is evil. So when we get to the spirit world, we're not, hopefully we'll start to gain insight into our lives and what took place, and hopefully that will help resolve that. But I don't believe there's any way an evil spirit can interact with the earth. If you like, they're put in quarantine, they're not allowed. It doesn't happen. Despite what you see in the movies, despite what you see in various programs, it doesn't happen. Anyway, I'm going to get off exorcisms, another hot topic. Okay, so Dave, you made a super chat. Thank you very much for that. That is greatly appreciated. And Keith, you've also done a super chat as well. Greatly appreciated. So Dave, your question, let me find it. Some days the flow of information is accurate and abundant. Then I may go through a couple of weeks where the information is wrong and I start to self-doubt. How can I stay positive? Thanks. Basically, this is mediumship. Mediumship is variable. There are so many factors that influence how our mediumship works. If you're having a bad week, if you're under a lot of stress, it will affect your mediumship. Whatever's going on in your life. I always say when people are going through challenges, first of all, look to see what's taking place in your life. Look to see if there's issues, stress, events in your life that may be affecting you. But also recognize that our mediumship is forever changing. I did a video as well on 7 reasons why your mediumship seems to be getting worse. And the word I will use is seems, because often it's not getting worse, often it's the same, or we don't recognize there's something shifting or changing and we haven't sorted that out. We need to work with it. So if you've not seen that video, Dave, I highly recommend you watch that. 7 reasons why your mediumship seems to be getting worse. Definitely. Worth a look. But once things start to go wrong, if it knocks our confidence, the whole thing can collapse like a pack of cards. Once our confidence starts getting knocked. So the foundations you build within your mediumship determine how easy it is to cope with the knocks. And I recommend everybody build solid foundations. Absolutely. I do have a course as well that I pre-recorded called The Confident Medium, where I look at confidence, not just in mediumship, but confidence big picture. And then we drill down into mediumship. And I went through that in quite a bit of detail there. I highly recommend that course for anyone who has confidence issues with mediumship. But confidence is a lot about positive self-talk. It's a lot about positive thinking. It's a lot about not allowing our thoughts to run away with us and create challenges for us in our life. We need to avoid that. So, yes. So it can be hard. It can be hard to stay positive. I get that. But recognize it's normal. Recognize that mediumship has its ups and its downs. That, I'll do a demonstration this week. It could be a flyer. I'll do a demonstration next week and it's a head slap moment. Oh, that was a challenge. We do 5 sit-ins. 2 are great. 2 are okay. And 1 is lousy. This is the nature of mediumship. There's no guarantees. There are, as I say, the number of factors involved for why things can go wrong. I do have a whole class on it. Mediumship Class 8, Managing Problems Within Mediumship. One of my videos, one of my 2-hour videos, Mediumship Class 8, Managing Problems Within Mediumship. And I go through all the different things that affect mediumship and can cause problems to surface within our mediumship. So I can't get into all of it in this course, obviously, in this class, because I can talk about it for 2 hours, obviously. But yeah, it can be challenging, but staying positive is all about your mindset. You've got to have that mindset, that positive thinking. You've got to recognize that it's normal, not catastrophize, not blow it out of proportion. Just recognize, yeah, this happens, but focus upon all the times it's worked. Focus on the 90% of times it works, not the 10% it doesn't. If you focus upon the 10% that don't work, you'll take yourself out your power and you'll collapse. And if you focus on that all the time, your foundations will start falling in. Not good. Hopefully that answers your question for you. Michael. It's important to be skeptical. How else can we investigate and learn? Totally. I have people tell me about their experience and I always think of logical answers. Needless to say, they're not always glad. Absolutely. People might not always be glad with me because I tell it the way I see it. I try and keep it practical. I try and keep it down to earth. And we've got to recognize that everybody has experiences and sees the world through their experiences, their knowledge and their beliefs. They create a construct within their mind to explain away their experiences. I go into a house, I feel a cold energy in a room. My construct is, why is this room cold? Let's look. It's an outside room with 2 outside walls and a flat roof. That's why it's cold. Somebody else goes into the cold room and says it's an evil spirit. Who's right and who's wrong? Each person's beliefs are equally valid. However, I will always look at trying to explain away logically, practically, simply first. And only once I've got all the rational explanations out of the way will I start opening up to the metaphysical explanations. Absolutely. So we have to keep it real. We really do. And there's far too many people who do not keep it real. And that's where the problems come in. Absolutely. Spiritual polygamy. Maybe it exists, yes. Evio, I read that marriage doesn't exist in the spirit world. But what is marriage? Marriage is a commitment to each other. Marriage is a commitment to share time together. So if that's what marriage is, then marriage absolutely exists in the spirit world. But you can make a commitment to more than one person. That's important to recognize as well. So, you know, I think that's worth seeing and recognizing. So marriage, I believe, exists, but it depends upon your definition. Whether it's a ring on a finger and in the eyes of a certain church, maybe not. But marriage, I believe, absolutely exists. Okay. And Natalie, I can see you've done a super chat there. Thank you so much. Greatly appreciated. Thanks for my time. Yeah, I'm happy to share my time. I do it in the hope of raising standards. I do it in the hope of helping people. If you find it helpful, by all means, feel free to donate through Super Chat or feel free to donate through my PayPal link. It's always greatly appreciated. Or if you want to buy any of my products, check out my products, my videos, my study program, my flagship study program, any of the courses I do. If you want to support me that way, that's always greatly appreciated as well. And don't forget, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Do like this video if you're getting benefit from it and leave me a comment. Okay, next question. Where are we? Aria Michaels. I find I'm able to provide much deeper evidence on a one-to-one sitting in the gallery demonstration. I feel it's because of nerves. What might you recommend in terms of being less anxious during dems? And again, it's another confidence issue. We have to learn to face the fear. What you have to understand, what is the fear of first. You know, we look for a fear. There's different fears. What is the fear of? Is it fear of public speaking? Is it fear of getting it wrong? Is it fear of being made a fool of? Is it a fear of spirit not coming to work with us? And then we have to work with that fear. You can try and rationalize the fear. You can try and, okay, spirit might not come with me one day. And that's my fear. I've worked how many times and they've always been there. They've been there 99%. You can rationalize it away, that they're always there. That's your rationalization. Or you can just say, do you know what? I'm not going to bother trying to rationalize it. Let's just do it. Feel the fear and do it anyway. Susan Jeffers' book. Good book. Feel the fear and do it anyway. Just do it. By doing it, the fear will drop. Now, some of you may not believe it, but I was a very, very shy boy. Very, very shy lad at school. I could never stand up in public. I was invited to be on several little stage plays and performances at schools. Never did it. Hated to be centre of attention. Never ever did anything that I had to stand out in front. And now look at me. Now I'm a working medium in front of audiences of up to hundreds. I'm happy to teach groups of people, hundreds of people. Not a problem. What changed? What changed is set along the road of doing it, overcome the fears, conquer the fears and do it. But recognise as well there's a greater the need for it. Once you've got your if you like, your why sorted, once you know your why you're doing it, then that can overcome the fears. Like, spirit needs a voice. They need mediums who can stand up and work for them, who can stand up and represent them, who can stand up and be ambassadors for them. And if you haven't checked out my Ambassadors for Spirit talk that I did, full length 45-minute talk, highly recommend that one too. Quick ad there. But that's what I was talking about in that class. They need people who are willing to stand in their power and represent them well. And when that becomes our why, the fears start to fall away. My little fears about little old me. No, the work is greater. Let's get the work done. My fears are maybe whatever, I don't know. I might say something stupid and I'll look like a fool when I'm teaching. No, the teaching is greater. The teaching is more important. Let's just do it. Let's just get on with it. Let's just make it happen. So you just got to do it. Feel the fear and do it anyway. Nike slogan, just do it. That's what I'd recommend. So go to the first one. And also something else you can do is reframe the nerves as the excitement of your soul. When you're excited, the feelings you get within the stomach are the same as nerves. When you're nervous, the feelings you get are the same. Recognize that nervousness and excitement are closely aligned. Just reframe your nervousness as excitement. And remember, even fabulous mediums, Gordon Higginson, wherever I put Gordon Higginson, before every demonstration, he still had huge amounts of nerves, and he demonstrated thousands upon thousands of times. He always had to keep dashing backwards and forwards to the toilet before every demonstration that he did. But we can harness those nerves in mediumship. It can empower our mediumship. So don't ask the nerves to go. I made the mistake when I first started doing mediumship of being very, very, very nervous. And I sent the thoughts out, Spirit, if you want me to work, we've got to get rid of these nerves. You've got to take these nerves away. For a while, I had no nerves, and my mediumship got worse. I said, okay, Spirit, bring the nerves back, because having the nerves is good. Because having the nerves, we can build on that energy to get excited, and into Spirit empowers us. So nerves are not a bad thing. So understand that nerves can be a positive too. Michael, I had a lady tell me I had a bad energy with me and she could clear it out for only $250, and she had miraculously had an opening available for me. Happens a lot. You go the first time and then they'll tell me there's some extra work needs to be done. You got to come see me. You got to come see me for a series of 6. I know people who've been charged thousands of pounds for spirit release. Thousands. When it didn't even need to take place. So when we look at people exploiting people, then those sorts of areas, removals of curses, removals of entities, exorcisms, etc., is an area where exploitation happens a huge amount. Another lady came to have healing with me, and she told me that she'd been having this special type of healing. I won't say what make of healing it was, but it's quite well known, and it's very well known for very high charges. And she was amazed that at the church we don't even charge for healing. It's free, donation only. Put a donation in the pot on the way out. And in the course of the conversation, it turns out she'd spent, each session was £100, and she'd had lots, thousands of pounds. And it's not right. I'm sorry. Healing should not cost thousands of pounds. That irritates me. That angers me. But there you go. Right, let me keep going before I get on my high horse again. Anastasia, do you think there's a link between autism and mediumship? Some famous mediums seem to be on the autism spectrum. Quite simply put, I do not know the answer to this question. I don't know of any famous mediums who I would consider autistic. If you want to pop their names in the box, let me know. But all the great mediums I've investigated, I don't think any of them would fit the autistic spectrum necessarily. So I don't know of any mediums who have autistic tendencies that I know of all the mediums I know. So I don't think there is my feeling. But yeah, I can see you put a name in there as well. I'm not massively familiar. But is autism a barrier to mediumship? Probably not, no. So it doesn't stop somebody with autism from doing mediumship. I know some people who have OCD tendencies, and I'll put my hand up to that one as well. Does that make me on the autistic spectrum? Probably. I'm a perfectionist, and I have OCD. Hey. But yeah, maybe some people consider it that as well. I don't know. But I don't think it's necessarily a barrier to it. But again, it depends upon how your mediumship works, how you perceive how it functions. I'm not of the opinion that that person has this, can't work as a medium. Don't believe that. It's not helpful. Tyrone, I had big trouble trying to connect for days on end after a night on the beer. How do you suggest keeping the energy flow constant and always ready to tune into spirit? So, first question I would ask is, does alcohol affect mediumship? And what I would say is alcohol affects mediumship in so much as we shouldn't do it once we've had a drink. I have worked as a medium when I've had a drink. In fact, I was on a course with Mavis Patilla, and it was a residential course in a hotel, and we were all at dinner, and on our table, think it was someone's birthday, and we're all having wine, drinking wine, and Mavis came over and tapped me on the shoulder and said, "You're deading tonight." And I'm like, "I can't, I'm on my second glass of wine, you know," and I'm like, I'm drinking, I can't work for spirit when I'm drinking. And she said, "Tonight, Martin, you get to find out how alcohol affects your mediumship." It's fabulous. So I had to work. And yes, could I work? Yes, I still worked. But I don't recommend it because we get overconfident. We can get overconfident. And also it can affect our perception. So I never recommend working under the influence of alcohol or recreational drugs for that matter. It applies to all of that. Obviously, sometimes we have to work on prescription drugs, and that's what we have to do. If you're on a prescription for certain medications and they affect you, you can't not take them, obviously. So, but alcohol, it's not a good thing to do mediumship on. Now, if you had an absolute skinful and you had the world's worst hangover, I reckon you'd have a heck of a job working the next day with a bad hangover. And the more we sensitize ourselves and the more we develop our sensitivity to work with spirit, the more alcohol affects me. I used to, going back in the day, I used to be able to drink a lot, but now I can't. Now I can drink a quarter of what I used to be able to drink before it affects me in the same way. And I know this with a lot of mediums. I know mediums have to give up alcohol because it affects them too much now. So that's important to recognize as well. So drinking, our tolerance to drink drops. The likelihood of a hangover kicking in begins to increase. So that's the first part of the question. Do I believe alcohol can affect it? Absolutely. But how do you just keeping the energy flow constant and always ready to tune into spirit? You don't have to do anything to do that, to be honest. I don't need to keep my battery topped up or anything like that. As soon as I finish doing mediumship, the time away from mediumship means that next time I come to it, my battery's topped up. We talk about power being the fuel for mediumship, but we build power and we have power. We work. I do an hour's demonstration and the power wanes at the end of it. You couldn't say to me, right, do another hour, because no, the power's dropped. But if you left it for a day, I'm fine. If you left it for 4 or 5 hours, I'd be able to do more. Absolutely. If you like, it starts recharging again when you step away from it. So the power's always there. Once we've developed a certain amount of power, it's there to work with. We don't have to sit in this presence of spirit to top it up. We sit in the presence of spirit, if you like, to build the size of our battery. Things like a power bank. I've got a power bank here, and a power bank has a certain capacity. Then basically, as we develop our mediumship, got to put the thing back in the hole that's powering now, good. So as we develop sitting in the power, we enlarge the size of our power bank. We increase the capacity of our power bank. We may go from a little power bank to a big power bank. That's what sitting in the power does to us. But the power bank is always charged, ready to go if we've had time away from mediumship. So the power's there. So tuning in is simply a case of moving your mind to the spirit world, nothing more, nothing less. So you don't always have to be waiting to go, right, I'm ready to move. No, so it always works whenever we try to do it, unless there's something else going on. Like I said in the previous question, when mediumship's not working, we have to examine why, what's happening in our lives. And if physically your energy's not great, if you had a skinful and you got a really bad hangover, that ain't going to be great. It's not going to help the energy of connection. So yeah. So simple answer is there's nothing I suggest for keeping the energy flow constant or ready to tune into spirit, because it just naturally you are, provided you're in the right state of mind. That's the caveat. Michael, you said when you get nervous, focus on service. Absolutely. I always bring myself back to the why. Bring myself back to why I do this. When the nerves and the energy are building, I bring myself to why am I there and what's it about, and focus upon the help, the healing it brings. That's it. Arian Michaels, I appreciate your response, and I did love your ambassador video. Amazing hearing that story about Gordon Higginson. That really helped. And for anybody who really likes mediums of the past, some of our great mediums of the past as well, I do have a course called Great Mediums of the Past, where I talk about my favorite mediums of the past. And my favorite mediums of the past, they are Gordon Higginson, Estelle Roberts, Helen Hughes, Morris Barbanell, and Harry Edwards. So I love those mediums. So if you want to find out more about them and the qualities that made them great mediums, check that out. And Aria, thank you very much for your super chat. That is really appreciated. Natalie, your question, I appreciate how you cover this with no nonsense and a spirit of non-competition which gets in the way of open dialogue and exploration in these practices groups. You don't need my validation, I know. And the thing is, I always teach that you shouldn't compete with other people. It's hard because the ego likes to compete. The ego likes to be in competition with other people. The soul knows better. The soul knows that we need everybody to make up a world. We need mediums of all sorts. When I first started investigating spiritualism and going to church and watching different mediums work, I'd see some mediums work and they really resonate with me. They're my kind of medium. I see other people work and they weren't my kind of medium or even my kind of person. And I'd think, why does spirit allow them to work when they're not doing it properly? Or why have they been chosen to be a medium when they may be quite rough and ready and down to earth and speak a bit gruff and maybe even swear a lot on platform? And I think, why would spirit want that? But now I see that we need mediums of all different types, of all different colours, of all different shapes and sizes to connect with the myriad of people there are in this world. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but some of the medium will be. Some people may not like the look of me, may not like the sound of my voice, but somebody else may be their kind of person and they like them. So we need the whole scope of everybody. Same with teachers. You know, there's as many ways of teaching as there are mediums and tutors, basically. I don't say what I teach is right. What I say is, if what I say resonates with you, if you can take what I say and it works for you, go with it. If what I say makes sense, appeals to your logical, rational mind, go with it. If what I say doesn't fit for you, if you don't think it fits, if it doesn't appeal to your mind, let it go. I don't mind. So, and again, people say to me, oh, you know, what do you think of that tutor? And is that tutor any good? I say, I don't know. I've never experienced them. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. But they may be right for some people, but not others. And that's the point. What I want in the world is as many good tutors as possible. What I want in the world is as many good mediums as possible. What I want to do is help move the quality up, raising the standards, raising the caliber, raising the quality. Because if people don't know any better and they're taught something crazy and they teach it to students and they teach it to students, it just propagates. You know, some of these practices we spoke about today propagate in that way. It's word of mouth teaching. You know, the practice of nobody knows where opening the chakras and closing the chakras really came from, but it's taught from circle to circle to circle. And you stand up and say there's no need for it. And everyone who was taught it will pile in and leave you a negative comment or dislike your video or tell you don't know what you're talking about. Or tell you that evil spirits will jump upon you if you don't shut yourself down. Not understanding that in 99% of cases, you take someone through a closing down chakra meditation and the next thing they start doing is talking about the circle and talking about spiritual things and they'll be wide open again. It doesn't make sense. It's irrational. You know, how can you make sure someone is shut down? Put a blanket on their head? You know, you get the idea. You can't. It's just crazy. But there you go. Tyrone, you got a question? What questions might you suggest to send out to your guides to improve, become more sensitive, even when there's not a sitter present to read? So, who makes you more sensitive? Your guides do not make you more sensitive. That's important to recognize. You make yourself more sensitive through your development, through your sensitivity and staying with your development. I would set the intent with spirit when we sit for what we would like. But beyond that, there isn't really any question or anything to send out. You know, maybe I'm going through a phase of my mediumship and the dates have all gone to pot. The names don't work anymore. I might send the thoughts out to spirit. It'd be nice if I could move back to a point where they work. If you can help me, guide me, inspire me to move there. If you can help inspire me what needs to shift or change to create that, that'd be great. But if it doesn't happen, that's equally great. Maybe it's not meant to be in this moment in time. But I don't ask them any specific questions. You know, me spending time in that power and presence of spirit will help to unfold the potentials from within. That's what I recommend and recognize. Evie, your question, can a person who is evil on the earth be the same in spirit? So we are the same person at the moment of transition. At the moment of transition into the spirit world, you do not instantly become beautiful, being of light and love. No, you are who you are. But think about it. There's people who do things upon the earth that would be considered an evil act who are not evil. You know, they do something stupid in a moment of passion or a moment of madness, and there's a price to pay, but they're not particularly evil. But then there's somebody whose entire life is a series of acts which are bad, who you may then put the label on, they're an evil person. But they're an unevolved soul. The spiritual qualities within them, that's given to everybody equally from the Great Spirit God. Those qualities have not unfolded. Those qualities have not found fruition. Those qualities have not come into play. They're moved away from them. Sometimes, you know, we can talk about, is it nature, is it nurture? If you're brought up in a family that is, you know, not the best family in the world, where you're not given the best example, that can have an effect as well. You've got to understand the environment we're brought up in plays a big role. You know, people who went to war, if they shot and killed somebody on the other side, are they an evil person? You might say it's an evil act to shoot and kill somebody. But then you might say the greater purpose was they were seeking to save the world from something terrible. And therefore, the greater cause was worth what they were doing, and therefore the act is diminished in the context. So we have to often look at the context as well. It's very, very difficult questions talking about evil spirits. It really is. So it's challenging. But I believe that when somebody who's committed evil acts goes to the spirit world, they are then, first of all, whatever you've done comes back to you. There's a price to pay. It's natural law. It's not someone's going to do something to you, but the pain and suffering you've created for others comes back to you. That's what happens, in my belief, and what Spirit have said. That if you cause suffering and pain to somebody else, when you get the spirit world, that pain and suffering belongs to you. So they'll get that. That will affect them. It's a little bit like Harry Potter and Voldemort. You know, there's a similarity there, that the pain and suffering will come back in at the end. And the person may awaken to what they've done. They may not. It may take time for them to awaken. But I believe they'll be at a level where, if you like, it's almost like a spiritual quarantine. They're not able to interact with the earth. They're not able to hurt other people. And hurting people generally, taking advantage of people and hurting people is generally of the earth. If there's no physical world, you can't physically harm someone. It's a world of mind. But people can be protected from the mind as well. So I don't believe they'll have the opportunity to be evil to people in the spirit world in quite the same way. So if you like, it's like a form of quarantine. And there will be people from the spirit world who want to work with them, who will work to help them, like, if you like, spiritual counselors, who will come forward to help work with them. So are they the same person in spirit? Yes. But will they change? There will be that opportunity for change. And I believe that over time, they will change. But it's up to them, the pace at which they change, because it's their choice, their journey, their life. Hope that makes sense. Anastasia, have you learned from the spirit world if we have only one predetermined exit point time, or are there multiples? Or is the earth messy and sometimes our deaths are just an accidental result? So the world is messy. There will accidents happen. Accidents can take us at certain times in our life, which is not, if you like, the predetermined time to go. My guides have said there's a time to come and a window, if you like, a window to go. But, you know, illness, a cancerous condition could develop through exposure to radiation or food or something, which could trigger it within you, and you pass before the window. You could be in a car accident that takes you before the window. But also with the window, technology could keep us here longer. Medical advances could keep us here longer than the window. You know, we've got such updates, people keeping alive with life support, etc., that you could be kept well past the window. So Spirit have said, if you like, there's that window to go, but a lot of people could go before, a lot of people could go after. It's no hard and fast rule. So I hope that makes sense. So yes, it's quite simply put, the earth is messy indeed. Michael, thanks for doing it. You're a champ for doing this. Also highly recommend your Fundamentals of Mediumship course. There is so much knowledge. Thank you, Michael. So if anyone's interested in that course, if you want to do the study program, do not buy Fundamentals of Mediumship, because the material is pretty much part of it. If you were to buy the modules 1 and 2 of the Course in Mediumship study program, you would get all that's in the fundamentals. The fundamentals is there for those who are not interested in the study program but would like to get it outside of it, if that makes sense. I was curious if a soul that's, let's say, as a murderer can be like that on the other side. No, you can't take a life on the other side, because we are eternal. It's a physical world, physical body that we kill. You cannot kill a soul. The soul survives. So it's not possible for somebody in the spirit world to do anything to anybody, because it's a world of mind. If you like, you can't hit somebody, you can't shoot somebody. There's no physical body to remove. So there's no such thing as murder in the spirit world. And the other thing is, think about it. Here, we can disguise our thoughts. We can pretend we're a nice person and commit evil acts. In the spirit world, you are your thoughts. People will see your thoughts, your energy. People will know what you're like straight away by looking at you. If you're harboring any thoughts of harming somebody, it's there in your energy and it's known. The problem with this world, that my guides tell me, is that in this world, we can hide so much. In the spirit world, everything is on the surface. Everything is known. There are no secrets. There's no such thing as lying to people in the spirit world, because the truth is evident. If you harbor bad thoughts to somebody, that person knows. You can't harm them because they already know. So that's what I think is fascinating. So I hope that helps you in some way. And Sheila, thank you very much for the super chat. That is greatly appreciated. You've not got a question, just to thank you for the Q&A. That's greatly appreciated. Evio, you said you want to donate, but it's not accepting your Visa card. You can try the PayPal. I don't know how it works. Depends upon your device as to how Super Chat works. I know that on certain devices it just functions through, like on an Apple device. I know on my Apple device, when I've done Super Chat on people's live streams, it just works through the iTunes. I think it's the same with Google Pay, but it depends what device you're on and what you're trying to pay with. So I don't know. You can always contact me and I can send you some mechanism if you wish. Anastasia, fantastic answers. Glad you're enjoying them. And Tyrone, do you believe a soul signs a contract before having a human experience? Sometimes when babies, children pass on, it's hard to see what lessons are learned in such a short human lifespan. I do talk about this in my Children in Spirit, class 3, of part 3 of Children in Spirit on complex questions. Highly recommend checking that one out. What I don't like to see is when a medium, someone comes to see a medium, they've lost a child, and the medium tells you, oh, it was their contract. Now, that person could be distraught from having lost a child. And when you tell them that, oh, they chose to go, they chose to leave you, that was their contract. For some people, that can be devastatingly painful and really hurtful. For others, it actually may help them to come to terms with it. I understand that. It can go both ways. It depends upon the person's understanding. But I don't like to see mediums doing it, to be truthful. And do I believe that we sign a contract before we come here? I don't actually. I believe we have qualities of the soul and the spirit to be expressed upon our earthly journey. I don't believe there's any written out contract. You have to do X, Y, and Z. I don't believe our lives are predetermined, prescripted. But I believe we come here with qualities that can be expressed. And as our life moves in different directions, I believe there's opportunities to express those qualities, however we exist in this world. You may be born into a country where the opportunity to express mediumship is not possible, but you can express those same self-spiritual qualities of service and healing in other ways. The opportunity is always there. So I believe we have the potentials. That's what I believe. And, with babies and children who pass young, again, what was the purpose of them coming? If only to teach the parent a lesson and for the baby to have that tiny experience. It doesn't make sense. And when you look at how many babies from conception how many fetuses from conception do not make it. A lot do not make it. Once the pregnancy goes beyond a certain point and becomes stable, a lot more do make it. I talk about this again in my Children in Spirit Complex Questions video that I did. But a great deal of souls who come forward would not make it. So I believe the soul will only come in when there's a potential for it to be stable. But then, you know, things happen in pregnancy and you lose babies. It could be a stillbirth. Babies could have an illness. There's all sorts of reasons. There could be medical malpractice at the time of birth that could cause a passing. Again, I would find that hard to explain away with a contract, to be honest. We live in an imperfect world. That's what I believe. We live in an imperfect world. So yeah, I believe no secrets in the spirit world. Absolutely. Naomi, why do spirit guides feel the need to give very clear messages about some topics, for example, career, but not give clear messages when it comes to other areas of life like family? It depends whose spirit guide you're talking about. And how are we... Depends in what mechanism. For example, in trance mediumship, you very rarely get guides coming through to give you personal advice about your career or your family. That would never happen. Generally, there's bigger picture philosophical issues that come through the trance teachings of mediums of the past and mediums of the present. I bring through a lot of trance teachings as well. So, and fingers crossed at some stage in the future, there's some books in development there as well. There's a lot of books in development. That's the problem. But yeah, you know, but your guide, think about it. You have responsibility for your life. Your guides are not going to tell you what to do. Spirit doesn't want to take away our learning opportunities and our learning growth. I think guides look at us like a loving parent looks at a child who understands that that child has to go through their own journey in life, has to make their own mistakes, has to learn their own lessons. They have their own path to follow. That's how spirit view us. And for me, our guides do not want to interfere in our lives. Yes, they'll give us advice and guidance, but it's up to us if we'll take it. But they won't. But they'll give us clues. They'll give us pointers. They won't say do this, but they'll give you hints, clues, pointers, guidance in that way. But it's very rarely you must do X. So in my experience, that's what I feel. So we shouldn't really look for that kind of clear guidance from our guides neither. We should look for the signposts, the pointers, the clues, the hints, the tips. That's what I feel guides are comfortable giving us. But I believe there's an unwritten law that they're not allowed to interfere. They're not allowed to live our lives for us as much as they might even want to. But they wouldn't, of course, because just as if you know, your child is going through some difficult time, but you recognize that's part of their journey. You can't save them. You know, you can't take all their problems out their path. You can't you can't walk in front of them sweeping all the stones and obstacles off their path. It's not possible. You've just got to support them when they need you and be there for them when they need you. But let them walk their own path. And if they ask your advice and guidance, you give it. Absolutely. You do that. You know, it's what normal people do. And that's what the guides will do. But they won't lead our lives or tell us how to do our lives. Hope all that makes sense. So the last question from Laurie. I'm going to bring it to a close because it's gone 9. So the last question. Can one of our ancestors become one of our spirit guides? Yes, is the answer. Can one of your family be one of your spirit guides or helpers? The answer is yes. It's unlikely that they would be your main guide because they're not really qualified to be the main guide. If you're looking at qualifications to be a main guide, generally your own family don't have those qualifications. But they love you. They care about you. They want to help you upon your journey in life. They're more than happy to be helpers, spirit helpers. I'm not sure I like to call families members guides, but I call them helpers. You know, for example, my own mum, she had an interest in spiritual things and she's been through mediums many times and she takes an interest in what I do. And, you know, I know that many people have given her as she's around you and she wants to help with your spirit work. So I believe she's one of my spirit helpers. Can I prove it? No. But many other mediums have given that as a statement, brought it through, but I can't prove it to you. There's no proof involved there. But I know because of her interest in this that she would. So that's what I feel. It would make a lot of sense. But I don't think your main guide is going to be your granddad, or your main guide's going to be your mum or your dad. Doesn't really make sense. When they get the spirit world, they've got their own life to lead. They've got the next stage of their own life to lead. They're not going to be instantly going to want to become a guide to somebody. It doesn't really make sense. And also, generally, having said that, guides do not always have to be evolved neither. That's important to recognize. But often the main guides, if you like, are more experienced, stroke more evolved. Generally. So I think we've pretty much I've been going for over 2 hours now, so I think it's probably a good time to park it. So thanks to everybody for your questions. If you would like to donate, as I said, you can. There is a donation link at the top of the chat box to my PayPal page. You can also make a donation through Super Chat in these closing moments if you wish. As I said, the Better Private Readings course has begun, but if you're interested, all the classes are recorded, and you catch the recording of class 1 and join us on the course if you're interested. It's a very interesting course. Feedback so far has been very good. Very appreciative of that. Also, as I say, you can check out my other courses, my flagship study program, my other videos, my meditations. If you have any questions on my products, you can drop me a line through either Facebook or through my website, and I can help you out with that as well. I'm aiming to do the next live at the end of August. I believe it's going to be Thursday the 26th of August is the date that I've currently provisionally booked in for it, if you want to join me then as well. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've taken lots from it. And yep, thank you, Tyrone, that you appreciate my simple, realistic outlook on mediumship. That's what I want to get across. You know, mediumship does not have to be complicated. All this work does not have to be overly complicated with fluff and crazy speak. You know, let's just keep it real. Let's keep it simple. Let's keep it down to earth and tell it like it is. And that's what I aim to do with these teachings. So if you got a lot from it, that's great. Remember, if you're not subscribed to the channel, do hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to get notified of my videos. If you're watching this on a replay, then do hit the like button and do leave me a comment if you've enjoyed it. As I say, if you want to let me know any topics for future videos, more than happy to have those and to do videos on. And yeah, so hope you got lots from it and look forward to seeing you all again in the next one. Take care, everybody. Lovely to see you.